Long-time surgeon was known and venerated.
Every room, full darkness, no water, no electricity. But we have a hero, surgeons in Gaza.
He was a lovely fellow. He was always smiling. He was very friendly. He was very outgoing.
While recording the surroundings on his mobile phone. However, the friends and loved ones never saw him again. Hundreds of medical workers have died or disappeared in Gaza. But Sky News has tracked down people who knew Dr. Al-Bursh, people who worked with him, who witnessed his treatment. An eminent surgeon who was subjected to repeated physical attacks. That is the claim.
He was so badly treated, so he was unable even to go to the toilet alone. So I thought he was beaten very bad.
This is the surgeon's friend, Dr. Obaid.
This is a part of the bread. We don't have bread from 1 week, and today, inshallah, we will have some bread.
Conditions were deteriorating at the 700-bed facility, but the staff seemed overjoyed when they received ingredients for bread.
Sandin. رغم الألم صندي.
Al-Bursh documents the mood inside. Here, a colleague recalls a painful conversation with his wife.
هذا الطلب كانت في طول حياتها، دائما بتطلب مني طلب واحد، بس خليني أشوفك مبتسم. بعد هذا الحرب إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى أنجانا.
Here we see staff members in scrubs digging mass graves. The head of orthopedics lending a hand. These images captured on his phone. A few days later, the hospital was evacuated. Patients and staff walking south in long columns past dead bodies left in the streets.
أخرجنا الجيش الاحتلال الإسرائيلي من مستشفى الشفاء عنوة وجبرا.
Videos on the surgeon's phone capture words of shock and surprise.
الحقيقة مظهر يشيب له الولدان. وهذا الدكتور عدنان معنا. الله المستعان. الله المستعان.
But Al-Bursh didn't follow the road to southern Gaza. He retraced his steps, heading northeast. Another hospital, called the Indonesian, needed his help.
تفاجأت من هناك جرحى ومصابين ينتظرون أكثر من 10 أيام لعملياتهم. الجروح تعفنت، التهابات شديدة في الجروح.
He was one of the best trained surgeons in Gaza, completing an advanced course at London's King's College Hospital. The training was led by this man, Dr. Graham Groom, who says Al-Bursh relished his time in Britain.
He was exposed to the techniques we use and, most importantly, to the team approach to the management of badly injured patients. He saw a much more coherent and cohesive team approach. And then he and others very much adopted that.
As the truce fell apart, Al-Bursh moved on to a small, hard-pressed facility called Al-Alda, the only functional hospital left in northern Gaza. And these are the last images we have of Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh. They were posted on the hospital's website one day before his arrest. These the words of Dr. Mohammed Obaid, colleague of Dr. Al-Bursh.
وكان الخوف شديدا ليس فقط من الشهادة، فالشهادة أنت شهيد عند الله تعالى، ولكن كان الخوف من التنكيل أو التعذيب أو الاقتياد إلى سجون ولا تعرف ما هي مصيره.
To leave.
فقال لنا أن قوات الاحتلال لديها كشف كامل بجميع أسماء الذكور ما بين 14 سنة و65 سنة في مستشفى العودة، ولقد قالوا له حرفيا إذا لم يأتي جميع الرجال الموجودين في الداخل فسيقوموا بتدمير مستشفى العودة وما فيه. أخبروها أنهم سيقوموا بقتل الجميع.
They threatened to destroy the hospital with the women and children inside, he said eventually. We put this allegation to the Israel Defense Forces, but it didn't respond. These drone images were taken near Al-Alda Hospital in December, and they matched in a way.
وكانت لحظات صعبة جدا عندما نظر إلي الدكتور عدنان. أحسست أنه يشعر أو لديه إحساس أنه في مأزق شديد، وأخذه ضابط الاحتلال وكانت المعاملة خشنة جدا.
Dr. Al-Bursh was sent to an army base in Israel called Stade Teman, a now notorious center used for processing detainees from Gaza.
Prisoners, I think at least a quarter of them were involved in healthcare quarter. Yes, at least. Some of them are doctors and nurses and technicians.
We found Dr. Khalid Hamouda in Cairo, a refuge, he said, after spending 3 weeks at Stade Teman. He told us the guards used him as their helper and remembers being told to fetch Dr. Al-Bursh at the gate.
And at this moment, he told me that they beat him badly. He feels pain in different parts of his body, in his chest bone and his back and his legs. He told me that they keep beating him till he arrived where I met him.
At the detention center?
Yes, in the detention center. He told me that he thought he may have broken ribs.
How did he look the next morning? How did he appear?
He was so badly treated, so he was unable even to go to the toilet alone. So I thought he was beaten very badly.
Al-Bursh left Stade Teman on the 20th of December and entered the Israeli prison system. In April, he was taken to a facility near Jerusalem called Ofer, where he died shortly after his arrival. News of the surgeon's death was announced quietly in May, the Israelis offering no explanation, no cause of death, nor have they returned the body to members of the family. Sky News can reveal new information about Al-Bursh's death. Human rights lawyer Nadia Daka has obtained a deposition from a prisoner who says he witnessed the moments leading up to the doctor's death.
He had clearly been assaulted with injuries around his body. He was naked in the lower part of his body. The prison guard threw him in the middle of the yard and left him there.
The deposition says Al-Bursh was taken by an inmate to one of the cells.
A few minutes later, prisoners were heard screaming from the room they went into, declaring Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh have been martyred. Adnan Al-Bursh was not the first case of a person who was beaten and died in the prisons since this war. Before him were many and many cases.
The Israel Defense Forces told Sky News that the death of Dr. Al-Bursh was not its responsibility. The Israel Prison Service has also denied responsibility for the death of the doctor. In a statement, it said, "All basic rights required are fully applied by professionally trained prison guards. We are not aware of the claims you described, and as far as we know, no such events have occurred under IPS responsibility." Some people might say, some people will say, that Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh was a terrorist.
Like, if I want to answer formally to this question, he was not charged till now, and many of these detainees are not charged from Gaza.
Dr. Al-Bursh leaves his wife, Yasmin, along with 6 children. They've been displaced by the war and currently live in the remnants of a school in central Gaza. The doctor's pictures now adorn the wall, and they've got his old phone messages, but that won't bring him back.
أنا نفسي بأقرب وقت يجيني وأدفنه وأكرم مثواه، بس برضو خايفة من هاي اللحظة إني أشوفه بعد ما كنت أشوفه عايش وإله هيبه وإنه كان كبير وقد حاله.
This story is one of a countless number that have been buried under the immovable weight of Gaza's recent past. Yet Al-Bursh was a much-loved figure in Gaza. His death and the manner in which he died deemed by many as unforgivable. John Sparks, Sky News in Jerusalem.
لا يبقى في الوادي إلا حجارته ونحن حجارته. كتبت تغريدتي الأخيرة وأنا كلي قناعة بأن اختياري صائب. كان بإمكاني العيش في رغد خارج غزة المحاصرة أنا وعائلتي والعمل بشهاداتي الدولية في جراحة العظام، لكنني آمنت بأن الله سخرني لخدمة أبناء شعبي الذين يعيشون ويلات الحروب حربا تلو أخرى، فاخترت غزة. أنا جراح الحرب عدنان البرش. كنت أتممت حينها إجراء 28 عملية جراحية متواصلة، لكن ذلك الجهد لم يكن يساوي شيئا مقارنة بما كان ينتظرنا في هذه الحرب، فكان التحدي أكبر وأثقل. صبيحة 7 أكتوبر استيقظت على صوت الصواريخ، فاتجهت دون أدنى تفكير إلى مستشفى الشفاء. ربطت هناك وغبت عن زوجتي وأبنائي ال6 لأيام طويلة. بعد أسابيع من الرباط طوقت دبابات الاحتلال المستشفى. طلبت من عائلتي مغادرة المنطقة وبقيت محاصرا مع المرضى والطواقم الطبية لأسبوع، ثم أمرنا جيش الاحتلال بالتوجه جنوبا.
والله يا أختي خرجنا من المستشفى بغصة، ولكن الحمد لله.
خرجت من الشفاء لكن لم أرضخ لأوامرهم، بل بقيت في شمال القطاع وتوجهت إلى المستشفى الإندونيسي. هناك كتب الله لي النجاة، فبينما كنت في غرفة العمليات قصف الاحتلال المستشفى، فاستشهد 2 من المصابين الذين كنت أعالجهم. بعد محاصرة المستشفى الإندونيسي انتقلت إلى مستشفى العودة شمالي القطاع، وبقيت أخدم المرضى بما توفر من إمكانيات شبه متواضعة. يوم 17 من ديسمبر عام 2023 اقتحم جنود الاحتلال المستشفى. كان اسمي أول من نودي عبر مكبرات الصوت. اعتقلوني بسترة البيضاء كأنهم ظفروا بصيد ثمين.
أدينا الرسالة، والله إن أدينا الرسالة وأجرنا على الله.
Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh was martyred in the occupation prisons on April 19, 2024, after being subjected to the most horrific forms of torture, including rape. The soldiers broke both of his arms, placed a chain around his neck, and forced him to crawl on his knees.
استخدموا أسلحة لم نعهدها من قبل، محرمة دوليا. نناشد كل حقوق الإنسان، نناشد كل المنظمات الدولية، نناشد كل العالم، احنا بايعين حالنا، احموا أطفالنا وبس.
They killed him because he fulfilled his noble mission and refused to abandon his humanitarian duty. The Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh is one of the most skilled surgeons in Palestine and the head of the orthopedic department at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. The occupying army arrested him, along with a number of medical staff, after they besieged Al-Auda Hospital in the northern Gaza Strip. The occupying army killed him in Ofer prison and completed the crime by not informing his family and detaining his body. Dr. Al-Bursh studied in Romania and obtained his bachelor's degree in medicine. He obtained the Jordanian and Palestinian boards in orthopedic and joint surgery, and the British Fellowship in Complex Fracture Surgery in London. He studied a master's degree in political science in the Gaza he loved and refused to leave until his last breath. Al-Bursh is one of 18 Palestinians, announced of, who the military killed during detention and torture in prison.
He was so badly treated that he wasn't even able to go to the toilet alone.
He was naked in the lower part of his body. The prison guard threw him in the middle of the yard and left him there.
He had clearly been assaulted, with injuries around his body.
This is how eyewitnesses describe the final harrowing moments
of renowned orthopedic surgeon and Gaza's beloved Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh.
Dr. Al-Bursh was a doctor who worked tirelessly for his patients.
Despite his forcible displacement from Al-Shifa Hospital by the Israeli occupation forces,
Dr. Al-Bursh carried on volunteering across every hospital in Gaza to save more lives.
London's King's College Hospital, where Dr. Al-Bursh trained and worked, have yet to acknowledge his death or the horrific manner in which it happened.
Had Dr. Al-Bursh been anyone but a Palestinian, he would have been hailed a hero.
Palestinian health workers, unfortunately, do not have that privilege.
We are devastated by the silence of our colleagues, our medical institutions and unions.
We cannot understand the cowardice and complicity of our institutions in hiding behind neutrality and policies in order to avoid speaking up about such gross violations of human rights abuses.
This goes against everything from our morals and ethics as health workers to how we should be treating each other as humans.
It's been 76 years and 14 months of this ongoing genocide. But it's not too late.
The people of Gaza and all across Palestine deserve to live a life
of safety, dignity and self-determination that is equal to any other life.
We, healthcare workers from Ireland,
The United Kingdom,
From Manitoba, Canada.
from England,
Scotland, Ireland,
Australia,
urge our governments
to stand
with humanity. We urge our governments to sanction Israel and implement an arms embargo immediately.
We leave you with Dr. Al-Bursh's most powerful word, steadfast. Despite the pain, we are steadfast.
نشد كل العالم احنا بايعين حالنا احموا اطفالنا وبس.
This is Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh. He was one of the most prominent doctors in the Gaza Strip. He was detained by Israeli forces in December last year, taken out of Gaza and tortured to death in an Israeli detention center in April this year. His torture was physical, psychological and sexual. He wasn't charged with any crime.
This is the recovery room. Full darkness, no water, no electricity. But we have a hero, surgeons in Gaza.
He was sleeping in the hospitals and documented the difficult and emotional moments Gaza's population and medical workers were forced to endure. Another doctor who was detained in State Haman at the time said Dr. Adnan felt pain all over his body from being beaten.
His chest cone and his back and his legs. He told me that they keep beating him till he arrived where I met him in the detention center. He told me that he thought he may have broken ribs, so badly treated, so he was unable even to go to the toilet alone.
Dr. Adnan's family found out about his death in May this year, several days after he died. His wife and son gave emotional pleas, where they said they were waiting for him to return to them as a freed prisoner, not as a martyr. The arrest and killing of Dr. Adnan, the targeting of hospitals in Gaza, and the destruction of Gaza's healthcare system is all part of what many doctors and healthcare workers have repeatedly said.
Who have witnessed a war where the destruction of the health system is central to the war effort. We know from testimonies of those who've been released that they are being tortured. Some of them have been killed under torture, like Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh.
We are in Gaza. We are in Gaza in the 21st century. This is Shifa Hospital, the greatest area in the world.
Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh was one of Gaza's leading limb surgeons, a father of three who trained at King's College London before returning home to work in Al-Shifa Hospital's trauma wards. News of his death spread today, less than 24 hours after Israel released prisoners back into Gaza. Dr. Al-Bursh's body, meanwhile, is still being held by Israeli authorities. British-Palestinian doctor Hassam Abu Sita worked alongside him at Al-Shifa just before the siege began.
I last saw him a day before Shifa Hospital was surrounded, and we were just kind of crossing each other in the corridor while each of us went to their operating rooms. And he was always so friendly, and he was always, even at the most difficult times, smiling.
Israel's prison service says Dr. Al-Bursh was detained for national security reasons. It's not clear how he died. He was head of orthopedics at Al-Shifa Hospital, which was besieged by the IDF in November. Forced to leave his patients, he then moved to Al-Awala Hospital in Jabalia refugee camp, where in December he was detained along with 10 others. On April the 19th, the Israeli prison service issued a statement saying that a prisoner had died here in Ofer prison in the West Bank. And yesterday, Israel released 64 Palestinian prisoners through the Kerem Shalom crossing.
For him, staying in Gaza was an option. He could have gone elsewhere. He could have gotten a job in any country he chose. But he chose to be with his people. He chose to serve them. He chose to stay at Shifa Hospital when it was besieged. And then he chose to leave Shifa and go to another hospital to continue his work.
Dr. Al-Bursh's loss will be felt by those who needed his care the most.
Hey everyone, this is Bissam from Gaza. I'm still alive, and during the past 5 months of playing basketball, I've sprained my ankle like dozens of times. There was that time when I suffered from a severe muscle strain in my back, and it required 6 months of treatment. Another time my leg and foot were splinted, and each time my injuries healed and I went back to the court stronger than before. And the real thank you goes to Adnan Al-Bursh. Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh, one of the most skilled and the kindest doctors ever. Okay, ever. He is one of those with exceptional experience and skills. He was an orthopedic, one of the best in Gaza Strip, maybe if not in Palestine. So Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh refused to leave Shifa Hospital. He refused to evacuate the north to the south because he believed that he needed to serve the patients in the north of Gaza Strip. So he evacuated the Shifa Hospital to the Indonesian hospital, also in the north of Gaza Strip. Then the barbaric and the terrorist army, Israeli army, kidnapped him from the Indonesian hospital. And now, after 100 days, we discovered that he was killed under torture in the Israeli prisons. Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh was a very skilled man. He was the first doctor to do the platinum operations successfully in 2010 in Gaza Strip. Do you realize who are they killing? The most skilled people and the kindest people we meet, the kindest people we know. I remember one time in 2021, I asked Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh to not to talk about my injury in front of my coach because I wanted to participate in the championship very bad. I wanted to participate it, and then he accepted my request, and he did not talk to my coach about my injury, and he provided me with the daily care until he treated me completely after we won the championship. We will never forget him. We will never forgive his killer, whatever will happen. Never. I remember when I was in Nasser Medical Complex, like maybe 120 days ago, like 4 months, I suffered again from the same strain in my muscles in my back, and I was searching about him, like telling anyone, give me the number of Adnan Al-Bursh. Dr. Adnan Al-Bursh, he's the only one who knows what I'm suffering from, and he knows like how to treat me. And they all told me the same. There is no signal in the north of Gaza Strip. He's still in the Indonesian hospital. If this is not a genocide, you need to tell me what is it. He's not only a professional doctor, orthopedic. He did not only serve in every single escalation and war against Gazans in the emergency for days and nights. He's a very kind person, a father, a brother, a friend. And all Gazan athletes were treated there in his clinic, besides me and my teammates. Rest in peace, Dr. Adnan. Rest in peace. We owe you everything. And thanks for that time when you did not tell my coach about my injury. That was a very important championship. A very important one. We will never forget you.